We're live. Can you hear me?
We can
Good
hear
stuff.
you.
Well, welcome everyone to another session of our Team Talks. This is the first of the Team Talk AI sessions that Kalpesh has put together for us. So thank you very much, Kalpesh, for all the great stuff you do for Team. And you've introduced a real professional here, Tim, who's going to help us to prompt like a pro today. So thank you very much, Tim, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Can you give us a bit of an overview of your background, your online CV? Tell us how you prompt like a pro, because at the moment I prompt like an amateur, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about you.
That's great. Well, I'm actually going to hand over to Kalpesh because he's going to do a bit of an intro for us, and I'll cover all of that career stuff as I go through my presentation. So yeah, thank you.
Slick as always, we've got this. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Team AI series. So thanks Simon for the intro. For those of you who don't know me, I am Kalpesh. I'm the guy in the orange jumper. If you come to Rec Expo next week, you'll find me on the Team Network stand or bouncing around in a few different places. So the AI Impact series. Simon and I were talking about this for what feels like forever, about this AI thing. And I was fortunate last year to meet Tim at an event. Tim and I then ran a session about how to prompt like a pro at Rec Agency Expo. And it went down really well, Tim. I think we had a good turnout. And over the last couple of months, I've been talking to Tim. We've been talking about different opportunities with recruitment and in the recruitment sector of how AI is becoming more mainstream and why one of the key skills lacking is how to prompt like a pro. So, Tim, thanks for doing today as well. So, what will be really interesting is actually you're not a recruiter.
No, I'm not.
That's your special power.
Shock horror.
Yeah. It is a power.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell us your story?
Certainly, yeah. I think Jahishish is going to pop up some slides for us. That would be great. Thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, hi everybody. My name's Tim Bennett. So I'm the founder of Powerhouse Digital and a digital marketing agency called My Cloud Media, and we also have a product that I run. I'm the founder of a product called Bobby AI, and we'll cover a little bit of that later on. Through my journey and my recent AI journey, we've created the Craft prompting framework, which I'm going to be very pleased to sort of take you through today, which will help you prompt like a pro. But my background really is 20 years in the digital space, running digital agencies, my own agencies, and also online retail. And I've been fortunate enough to work with big brands like Lucasfilm through online retail. And more recently, and over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, my focus has been very much more on the manufacturing and engineering space. But I do quite a lot in education and now quite a lot in recruitment as well, which I'm pleased to say. But my original background is in textiles. I'm based in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire, and I'm from Luddite country. So I actually grew up in the mills of Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, where all of the change and disruption started to happen in the Industrial Revolution 200-300 years ago. And I think that's what we're starting to see again today. So I think I've got a few T-shirts, and I'm happy to sort of explain how we've now developed that into a prompting framework. But I just want to hand over here because this is something that myself and Kalpesh delivered at the Rec Expo, and it really sort of frames how AI and our framework fits into the recruitment world.
So yeah, thanks for that, Tim. I think, look, for those of us that are recruiters on this call today, and for those of us that aren't recruiters, it's probably worth you understanding how the recruitment industry is also going through a massive shift around how AI is impacting the core elements. So what this slide's representing is actually the shift that we're seeing, that recruiters traditionally have been very transactional. You give me a job, I fill a job, and then we move on to the next one. They're now moving into that strategic advisor space where actually recruiters are expected to provide data and insight. They're expected to help navigate and advise clients. And they've also got to be that human in the loop in the actual interview process. There are 6 core pillars in the recruitment industry that Tim and I identified that have some form of AI impacting it, all the way from business development, client relationships, and if you follow the boxes all the way through to the bottom right, relationship management. So I think the key thing that came out when we explored this last year was recruiters need to spend less time on admin and more time on building trust, applying judgment, and impacting outcomes. And that is where the power of AI can fundamentally help a recruiter. So, Tim, I'm going to hand back over to you now to take us through your framework and some of the tools that you've uncovered.
Thank you. Great. I would just sort of like to say, if you've got any queries, any questions, any comments that you'd like to make today, there is a comments section, I think somewhere in the portal that you're looking at there. We'll address those as we go through, and also we'll have some Q&A at the end as well. So one of the things that I always try to explain to people is that how can we think about AI? And really, AI can be considered to be your hyper-intelligent, newly hired assistant. And the reason we say that is that the level of intelligence that AI has right now is somewhere around the region of a PhD level student, which is fabulous. And it's not just a PhD level student in one subject; it's every subject, because the AIs have been trained on everything ever written and everything ever published on the internet. So we've got a good starting point in that respect. And this little slide here just sort of gives us an idea of how we're currently using AI right now. So even if you don't appreciate that AI is in your life right now, if you're watching Netflix, or you're shopping on Amazon, or you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, TikTok, AI is running those systems in the background. And that has been around for quite a few years now. And in 2022, early 2023, ChatGPT launched, and ChatGPT 3.5 came to the market as an LLM, a large language model. And that allowed us to start to do stuff with things like chatbots and AI tools. And in the space of the last probably 2 to 3 years, there's been an explosion in the amount of tools which are out there. And it just means that people have a little bit of AI overwhelm, in terms of they don't know which tool to use and which tool is going to do the right job for them. And so hopefully, talking to an AI is going to be the best way around of that. Where we're going, sorry, my slides got slightly scrambled there, but basically super intelligence is where all of this is heading, or that's the theory. And that could be Skynet, or it could be utopia. So we'll wait and see what happens. And AGI or ASI, advanced general intelligence, or advanced superintelligence, is probably, according to some people, 6 months away. Lots of people reckon it's 2 to 5 years out. So we'll wait and see. These are the big players in the market. So everybody will be familiar with ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. Claude's is in the news a lot lately with regard to what they're doing with the American government and their coding platform, which is very sophisticated. But lots of companies will also be very familiar with Copilot, and Copilot is part of the Microsoft ecosystem, and it's something that you'll see when you're using Outlook or Teams and all of the Microsoft tools there as well. There are other tools out there. Mistral's a European EU LLM model. Llama is part of Facebook. DeepSeek is a Chinese model. Perplexity, actually, if you've not used this is a fantastic model for doing research. It's an AI search engine. And then Grok is all part of XAI and Elon Musk's empire.
So, Tim, just a quick question for you. So, before we go into the main part of what you're going to show today, the framework and the concepts you're going to share today, can they work across all of these platforms?
Absolutely. And this is the point of really explaining this slide, because the landscape is very, very wide. These are the day-to-day tools that people will interact with, but there are tens of thousands of other tools out there that are all based or built on top of these platforms in many cases. But how we talk and interact with these tools can be the same. We can do this in a structured way. So just to give it some context, in terms of the number of users of a platform like ChatGPT now, 888 million users every week, so with a 73% market share. And within that, we also have Microsoft 365 that we talked about. So 105 million users there. So just gives you sort of some context of who the players are and how big they are in the market. But really, it's really how do we best talk to AI, whether it's our LLM, whether it's Copilot within our workspace, whether it's a tool that we're using that does another job for image generation or coding. How do we best talk to that AI? And it really comes down to two components, the right tasks and the right instructions. And this is what's going to give us the best usage. And we're going to cover off the right instructions, because the right instructions are a way of talking. We call it prompt engineering. It's a very fancy name called prompt engineering. It does start to get a little bit, or sound a little bit techie in that respect. But prompt engineering is just it's talking to the AI, and it's a communication skill. So if we can use WhatsApp, if we can use Facebook, LinkedIn, communicate an email, we are just communicating. So we use and can talk to AI in just the same way. And a prompt is basically a set of instructions, like we would talk to a colleague or a junior in our business. We're giving them an instruction, a brief to do a certain job, and it's very much like talking to a human in that respect. So I'm going to use an example as we go through this presentation about how we might use the creation of a blog article in the recruitment industry space. And I'll show you that basically we could just go to ChatGPT and we could just write in, please create me a blog article about the recruitment industry in the UK, the state of the recruitment industry in the UK. And very cleverly, it would go off in the background and it would do its deep research if you click that button. And pull back lots of information into the resource that is going to deliver to you the prompt feedback. But unfortunately, it's going to be quite vague. It's not going to be on point. It probably won't be on brand. And this is where we need to start thinking about, turning these generic results into something which is a bit more specific for our end use case. So we've developed the craft prompting framework. And the craft prompting framework is an acronym, and I'm going to go through this. So it's context, role, attributes and actions, facts, figures and functions to deliver a target outcome. So let's start off with context. So context really is, we're setting the scene here in terms of, we're telling the AI about what we want to deliver. We want to set the stage for the success. We want to basically ensure that the AI understands what we need to get out of this conversation. You'll find as we go through these processes that what we're trying to do is narrow down all the time in terms of getting down to a specific output, because the more accurate we can be in our instruction, the better the result that we're going to get back from the AI. And the reason we set the context in the first place is that, we want to reduce things like ambiguity. We want to create the relevance, ensure that it's going to increase the accuracy, and also supports, in some cases, strategic thinking. When we combine that with the role, and the role really is the hat that we want the AI to wear in this case. As I mentioned, the AI has been, or the LLMs have been trained on loads and loads of different content, every content that's ever been written. So we can be very precise in the role that we give to the AI and tell it to be and act in a certain way. So we can ask it to be an expert. We can ask it to use a professional tone. We can just basically tell it how we want it to behave.
So Tim, just in all of these bits you've mentioned so far, is there anyone can do this, right? In terms of putting context, and you were very good at, you were kind to me. I probably think it's a polite way of putting it when I showed you the quality of my prompts 7 months ago. The typical problem is everyone just puts one line in and hopes for a miracle.
Yeah.
Is the idea of this basically you give enough information to take you on your sat nav analogy you used before, of if you don't tell a sat nav where to go, you'll always end up in the wrong direction?
Yeah, we don't want to do spaghetti junction. We want to
Yep.
go from A to B as quickly as possible in this case. And the reason that we do this through a structured framework is not just to save time and become more efficient. We'll come on to how we can basically, use these structured prompts as part of SOPs within our business. And you'll see at the end that the that we create in this example is going to be quite long and detailed, but then we can store that in a prompt library, and we can then use that across the business for different team members in the company. So we start to get a consistency of our tone of voice, of our style, and everybody's on point. So rather than somebody in one part of the business in marketing, let's say, versus someone in sales, someone in production, we start to see different use cases. But if we have a standard framework to work to that's got elements within it that are standardized for the business, then we're going to be much more on point. So when we look at these first two elements here, we've got context and role. And as I said, we're starting to get less generic responses now because we can start to fine tune. So in the case of this, we're going to say that, we are, in this example, the UK's leading recruitment agency in the financial services industry. You, i.e. the role, you are the top recruitment specialist with a vast knowledge of human resources for enterprise clients. And you're going to help me create a thought leadership article. So we're starting to get very precise in what we want. What we can do now is we can start to add more elements to this prompt, and things like action and attributes are going to help us basically become a bit more clear on the deliverables in terms of what we want the outputs to be. So is there a certain that we have within our business that we want it to follow? Is there a framework that works within our area of the recruitment industry that we always have to follow? Can the prompt refer to that? And basically, this is going to start to help us not have lots of back and forth revisions, because it's going to help the output to be more on point first time round.
So would this be if we think about the recruiter, the great recruiter you mentioned before, I work for company X, where the best financial recruiter in the UK. I specialize in this. And then the next part of this, in terms of attributes and actions, it could be referring to either qualifications, or it could be industry jargon that can help narrow it down to make it more specific. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Brilliant.
And what we're doing here is I refer back to that original sort of scope of what we were trying to achieve here. If we just say write a blog article about something, it is just far too wide. We're not going to be on point in that respect. And these are some of the types of attributes as well. So we could use those standard industry systems and frameworks, but we can also, in the case of this, because we're creating an article, be very specific in terms of how we want that output to look like. So use a good headline, make it an intriguing, enticing first sentence, make it easy to read, and let's have a good call to action at the end of the article. When we combine that with facts,
so Tim, I thought just going back to that one, just coming through, because I know, again, you've corrected me on my language a few times over the last couple of months. So if anyone's come across me and thinks, how does Kalpesh know what he's talking about? Tim's partly responsible for it. So when we talk about attention-grabbing headlines, don't forget that you might commonly hear, if you read any of the posts on LinkedIn, about the hook. A headline is basically the hook. How do you get people to stop and read your article or your blog? So I thought I'd just drop that in, Tim.
No, thank you. Yeah. So we then further enhance what we've got now with what I call facts, figures, and functions. And this is where we can start to get into the real nitty-gritty of what we want to have as an output. We're going to really ground the AI in our reality in terms of what we want. So this is going to help us support better reasoning. It's going to improve the accuracy of what we're going to have as an output. And it's also going to help us in this case of producing an article. It's going to make us look more credible to our audience. And what we're doing here is we're giving more precise information and data to this instruction, this part of the overall prompt. So in this case, we could say, look, let's include productivity statistics. we might want to include things about salary banding, benefits packages, time to hire targets, whatever that might be in the context of this particular article. But we can start to get really granular in the information that we put in there. And then we're going to round all of this off with what we expect the AI to produce in this particular case. In the case of a blog article, you know, how do we want this blog article to look and feel? What is our objective, if you like, for using this prompt? Because if we can define this objective up front in the prompt itself, it means that the backwards and forwards tweaking and iterations are going to be much, much fewer. And one of the reasons we like to do that, and I explain this in part of our training workshops as well, is that it's not just going to save you time, it's going to go a little bit towards saving the planet as well, because 30 or 40 prompts with an AI is around about a litre of water that's used to cool the chips. And that doesn't sound like a lot. You know, we'd probably use that when we're brushing our teeth, but if you times that by 888 million users every week, this then starts to become something which is a bigger issue. So, you know, just by doing this clever bit of prompting, we're not only being more efficient, we're being a little bit more green as well. And it's, you know, the reason is because it's going to improve that first time accuracy. It's going to give us that actionable output for in this case, what we want our readers to do. It's going to help sharpen thinkers, and it's going to make the article more relevant as well. So we move from something, sorry, I'll just dip in here because this just gives an example of what I'm saying here. So you can position your agency, your recruitment company as a top thought leader, number one choice for clients and candidates. And then the call to action might be that we want to ask our readers to, you know, come on our next webinar, download a document, join a newsletter, become part of our team, whatever that call to action is. You know, go over here to look at a recent job that's been posted. This is where we can be very specific in that outcome. So we move from being something like this, which is quite easy and quick to actually put in, to something which is a lot more detailed.
So just for clarity, this is a live example that Tim's used. That first one was me in September last year.
Yeah, great. And what we're seeing now is that we're probably going to get a similar type of output, but my article that the AI is going to produce is going to be a lot more detailed. It's going to be more on point. It's going to do exactly what we want it to do in terms of a first time round iteration. And, you know, we're using a blog as an example here, but we could use this for any kind of operating procedures in a business, for any kind of function that we might do. Coders use this kind of framework to get the best outputs out of what they want, because we're starting at point A and we're moving to point B, but we're going through these various steps as we move along. But there's a few things that we can do now with, I mentioned, like prompt libraries. So that prompt itself looks very wordy, and to type that out every time is going to become quite tiresome. And, you know, we're all time poor, and we want to do stuff quickly. So what we can do is, as part of the business, we can start to build out standard prompt libraries, and tools like Microsoft Copilot already have this baked in. So there's a prompt gallery where you can use some prompts which are pre-prepared by Microsoft, but also you can start to add in your own prompts now to build up a prompt library for marketing, for sales, for, you know, for outreach, for customer retention, for candidate screening, all sorts of different things. And the prompts can go into this one library. So it's going to make you more aligned across the business. You're going to get more improvement in your consistency, and you're going to make it more accessible for your team. So you're all going to be on the same page. But there are a few things that we need to be aware of, because AI and large language models are not perfect. They can hallucinate, but by narrowing and removing the ambiguity in the question that we're asking, or the role that we're asking it to perform, it can hallucinate less. But we have to be aware of the fact that, you know, an AI isn't a human. It doesn't have common sense. It's going to produce stuff because that's what its job is to do. Its job is to put one word after another word, because that's how it's been trained. So it can produce some very correct sounding nonsense, which seems on point, but it needs fact checking. And a number of companies have fallen foul of this. some of the big agencies have fallen foul of this. And we need to also then make sure that the output is in our tone of voice. It doesn't contain what we call lots of M dashes and Zs and, sound like the AI has uses the Oxford comma, which is quite common. But also we need to be very conscious of safety and security when we're putting that information into that prompt. No personal identifiable information for candidates, for companies. Facts and figures need to be sort of downplayed a little bit. We don't want to put a lot of sensitive information into these LLMs. And I think what we're trying to get to then is that, by using this standard framework, we've got something which is easy to remember. It's structured. It doesn't always have to be used in this order. We can start with the target outcome and we can then drop the facts and figures in. We can then give it the role and then the context. We can just mishmash it together. And it might be sometimes that we actually don't have the facts and figures to hand. So we're going to use part of this framework, but it's giving us a structure to start with, and it's a good stepping off point going forward. But the thing that we need to remember is that you guys are the experts at what you do, and AI is a great tool, and it's a great asset for our business. But you, as I say, you are the experts, and you need to ice the cake. You need to put the finishing touches always to what the AI is producing. And myself and Kalpesh have talked about a number of cases where if we hand over the role of the AI in certain job roles and functions that we mentioned in those 6 pillars, there is a danger that, we're leaving our business just in the hands of AI. And that's not the right thing that we should be doing.
I think it's worth flagging, Tim, also, bearing in mind we're talking to recruiters today predominantly, and I know we've got some people on here that are outside the industry. Recruiters need to be aware of the EU AI Act, that one of the things you have to be able to demonstrate is if you are using AI in the decision-making process of a hire or a vetting process, you have to be able to clearly identify how it's been used and reference it back. So, this is a really important point, that AI is there as the tool, but remember, you are the ultimate human in the loop that decides how that output is used to make the decision.
Absolutely. So, the thing that we sort of take away from this a lot of the time is that if we can get this process right, it's not the only process that's out there. It's one that we've created. We've created this through our own learning and understanding of interacting with the AI. I mentioned Bobby right at the beginning, which is one of our AI products, which is actually a chatbot. And we found in our early iterations of that piece of software is that if we didn't give it the right instructions, we were always getting inconsistent results for our clients. So doing a trial and error process of prompting helped us come to a standardization here. And
Tim, just to be really clear, this is your model, right?
This is a registered trademark.
Okay. And the opening section, you talked about your journey from Kodak all the way forwards. You've now done this in a number of industry sectors using this framework.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough in the last year or two to, not just be involved in the recruitment industry, but lean back into my sports background, particularly with companies like Ping, who've done some training with us recently, and also the manufacturing and engineering sectors as well. So it's, as we grow as a business and we grow our solution here, training people in basic AI literacy is really, 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 really important for people who are even not just running businesses, but new people who are coming into any kind of industry, the people that are being recruited by the recruitment companies to go into roles of their client businesses. And having a basic understanding and a basic literacy isn't just, a good thing to have. It's not just a nice thing to have. It's actually going to become a legal requirement as part of the EU AI Act as well. So.
And I think I just reference we've got a couple of comments and questions that hopefully we'll have time to answer. But one of the things is Jaden in the chat highlighted the fact that if we think about a behaviour change, normally when you put things into Google, you try and keep it vague to try and get as many results as you possibly can. But when you're putting things into AI or you're building a prompt to go into AI, it's the reverse. You want to keep it as precise as you can to make sure you get the right outputs. So thanks for that, Jaden, as well.
Yeah, and I think there is this danger of people using the AI just like a Google search engine, and waiting for those results. But that's only part of what it can do. And there are other search engines like Perplexity, which are much better than that. So, having an understanding and playing with these different tools and seeing what they can do and stress testing them with ideas and context, context and concepts is something that we should really try. I think the real goal for me is to try and encourage people that I talk to at least have an hour a week where they're just sort of testing different tools and models, and they're going out there and playing with the AI. And if you can have the time and do that an hour a day, your overall knowledge of this this new technology and the way it can be used within business is going to be setting you massively in front of your competitors as well. It's going to give you a real competitive advantage.
So, Tim, I know we're coming to the last couple of slides, but you're going to leave us with some goodies, aren't you?
I've got some very good goodies, yeah. So we have a free resource pack, a goodie bag, which has got a load of free craft, sort of pre-made craft prompts in there. So these are for general use, but also we've done some which are specifically for the recruitment industry as well. We've got another stack in there, a presentation deck, which talks about 80 other tools that we've reviewed for different industry sectors. So that's worth going and having a look at. There's some information on courses that we've got going on there as well. And there's obviously we've got reference to myself and Kalpesh and some other people within our network that are great people to know that you can lean on and connect with on LinkedIn. I think one of the things that we've been working towards is launching a new platform, a new training platform, which is called Skills for Learning AI. And that's going to launch towards the end of this month with a boot camp. We're very conscious that people have had Microsoft 365 dumped onto their desktop and they see this nice little shiny icon, but they don't really know how to get the best out of that. So we're going to run a 3-day boot camp, an hour and a half a day. You can sign up today. We're going to run that from the 30th, 31st and 1st of April. So it'll be great to see you on there. We're also running in June, throughout in our 3rd year, the AI Beach Party. So we'll share some information about that. And that's a great away day. And we call it an AI away day, where you can bring yourself or your team members, and you can come down to London, onto City Beach there. And we've got great speakers. We've got great networking. So it's something else that people can do and they can get involved. So,
and that's where we met. We met at the beach party.
We met at a beach party, didn't we? Which is great.
Talking about AI, which sounds a bit weird, right? But it's good. Okay, so look, I mean, we've had a couple of questions. I know we've answered a lot of them as we've gone through, actually, thoroughly. But probably 2 questions coming through. Is number 1, do you have to use the craft framework, or can you use anything?
You can use anything. There are a number of frameworks out there. I work with a number of trainers in the industry, and they have their own proprietary frameworks. They're all doing very similar things, and they're getting us, as I mentioned, they're getting us from A to B much more quickly and much more succinctly, much more efficiently, and it's helping us to drive the best output from the conversation that we're having. So, craft is our own, and this is why we go and present it. It's an easy formula to remember. It's not the only one, but we think it's up there. It's one of the best ones.
And second question, Tim, if I'm on this call today and I'm listening, I'm going, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start, even though you've given us a bunch of resources. What is the one thing you would recommend someone to go and do?
As I mentioned, playing with the AI at least once a week. We're all guilty of doom scrolling on our phone and going through Facebook every day, or if you're my age, or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, and getting sucked into those algorithms. And the AIs that sit behind those social media algorithms are very clever at keeping you within the platform. And we're falling into 2 sets of people. So we're going to fall into 2 divisions. One will be consumers and one will be creators. The creators are the guys that can create new opportunities for their business. And if we're just consuming blindless content, of which probably 60, 70, 80% of content now is going to be AI generated. So it's not real content that we're looking at. it's a real waste of our time. And I think we can use that time more effectively to learn more about these AI tools.
And there's a final one we haven't got on here, and I think it's a tool that we only talked about last week. But you have now created a assessment tool to help people understand how literate they are with AI, and it's free.
It's a free tool. It's called Me, My Business and AI, and it'll give you a benchmark in terms of where you currently sit. It's something that we normally put out before we do any of our training sessions, and it helps us to gauge the AI awareness and AI readiness within the room. It's a good sort of benchmark for people who might want to use something similar in their business to understand, where a candidate might be in terms of their AI knowledge, or even team members within their business, for them to get a perspective on, who and which people in the business are your AI champions, and which are those people that need a bit more support to understand AI a bit better.
Brilliant. And Simon and I ran the London meeting last week, and we had, one of the key outputs that we gave. We had over 50 team members in the room. It was embrace AI. Right? It's not going anywhere. It's going to be part of our tapestry of our life. It's going to be embedded. And those of us that have been around long enough, 25 odd years ago, when the internet turned up, it was like, right, what is this internet, and what do I do with it? And for those people that embraced it, it became a digital channel now called e-commerce, and Amazon is part of that internet boom. And there's a whole bunch of people that basically tried to dodge it and had to play catch up later. But look, thank you very much, Tim. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Simon.
I have a question.
Yeah, over
I
to
have
you,
a question. Tim, you mentioned ChatGPT before. You also mentioned Perplexity. Have you got any guidance for people to which tool to go to get some understanding on, and what tools are right for different requirements? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And I'll just pull up my previous slide here. I'll just give us a bit more. Where are we? 1 second. Here we go. So these are sort of the big players in the marketplace. One of the tools I'm using more and more, and I find it really useful for business, is Gemini. And Gemini is a Google tool. So if you've got a Google Workspace account, you can go into and start using things like Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a great tool for whether it's for training staff, for onboarding, for doing research, for doing all sorts of analysis. And it basically is it's a studio where you can upload a ton of information. So it could be links from LinkedIn articles, it could be YouTube videos, it could be PDFs, it could be websites. We build a knowledge base of all of that information that's specific to this little project, this little research project that we might want to be doing. And then we can start to quiz through the use of the AI all sorts of queries and questions. And it then has a little studio section to it, which allows us to turn all of that content into podcasts, which you can actually interrupt. There's a little mini radio show, so you can have two AI avatars talking to each other about the content, and you can interrupt that conversation and ask questions. You can produce flashcards, you can produce presentation decks. So I'd say that's one of the really useful tools that's out there. And a lot of those services within that Notebook LM and within the the Gemini ecosystem is free as well. So if you've got a Google account, jump in there and start using that straight away.
I think you've got it on your resource page anyway, and if you haven't, I'm sure we can add it on.
Yep, we've got that in there. Claude is really good for creative writing. So ChatGPT is good and getting better all the time, but Claude is particularly good at that. And Claude's also, if you're working in the STEM space, Claude's very good for coding as well. So we can use Claude for all of those kind of things. Copilot, with more and more people are using that daily, basically because it's within their Microsoft's platform already. And that again has got some really clever tools. So it has what's called a Create Studio, where you can go and create images, videos, posters, flyers, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's all on brand because within your Microsoft graph, as they call it, it's already got your brand guidelines. It's got your material that you can start to use in that. It's also got great research tools and analyst tools within the agent section. and it has something similar to Notebook LM called Notebooks, bizarrely, which is like a little area where you can start to put in and build projects out and do research, which is specific for either a specific task or a specific client in some cases.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. That was really good. And those Gemini tools sound fantastic. Really,
they're really clever.
Yeah.
We in the resources, you'll see that we've shared a deck of other things. I'll also share in there sort of, I have a list of 15 top tools that I use every day for things like note taking, for video creation, avatar, social media planning, all that kind of stuff. So we'll put all of that information in there. And then we also have a directory called apps and websites.com, which features over 1,000 tools. So, and these tools are ones that we've looked at, we've vetted, and we know that are good for the market.
And what's your capacity on your boot camp? Because that sounds amazing and a great price. And thank you for discounting that to our members. So you probably got you haven't got a capacity. You can have as many as you like because it'll be online, won't it?
Exactly that, yeah. So we're pushing this through our new sales skills for learning platform, which will allow basically everybody to come in and do, join the calls a little bit like we're doing today. And we've split it out into 3 days. So in the first day, we'll make sure that people are set up properly and they know about all of the data protection things within the back end of Copilot. Second day, we'll dig into the actual the way to use it across the tools. Of course, there'll be prompting that goes throughout all of this. And then on the third day, we'll look at those specific services that Copilot's offering. As I mentioned, the agents, the notebooks, the Create Studio, and we'll do a deeper dive into those as well.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you very much for an incredibly insightful session and a great launch session, Kalpesh, for the rest of the program. Thank you very much.
We've got
indeed,
4
Tim.
more sessions coming, so stay tuned and keep a lookout.
Thank you very much indeed. Hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Have a good day. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.